Hi everyone, and welcome at this session about document intelligence and knowledge mining with Azure. Just to give you a short introduction about myself, my name is Sami Depre. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm 5 times on a row awarded as a Microsoft AI MVP. I'm a freelance AI engineer and a board member of the global AI community. Enough about myself, that's not what you're here for. You want to learn more, of course. And as I said, we will learn more about knowledge mining with Azure. Now, knowledge mining with Azure can be done in many different things. Now, we also need to keep in mind that knowledge mining is extracting information from your data lake, from your data swamp, just any data that is in your organization. It can be a SharePoint environment, can be a file share, it can be even a SQL database. There's so much information in an organization that has potentially valuable information that is stuck in data formats that are difficult to explore, such as forms, PDFs, or even contracts and images. Now, with knowledge mining, we are going to leverage industry-leading AI capabilities to easily unlock all that insight from all the content at scale. So what if we could extract all this rich information using AI? Well, and that's what we want to go forward to. Now, Microsoft has a service which is called Azure AI Services. AI Search, excuse me. Now, with using AI search and its built-in AI capabilities, customers can discover patterns and relationships in their content, and that way also understand sentiment, extract key phrases, and more, all without any data science experience. This is a service that you can immediately make use of. Now, we've seen very positive reactions on how AI search has been implemented in many different organizations. Myself, I'm a very big fan of AI search, especially now with everything that is going around with large language models, because the AI search is as well a vector database. But that's something we're not going to go into today. That might be one of the other sessions in this series. Now, for example, if you have tons of content and you want to have a search experience on top of all that information, well, then AI search is a great tool on top of that. But now, what if you have all this information and you want to actually also visualize it in Power BI? Well, that's also perfectly possible. Now, what you see on the screen is actually the flow of how AI search works. First, you have the ingestion part. The ingestion part means we want to extract data from a particular data source. Now, AI search already has a bunch of different kinds of data sources that you can make use of: SQL database, blob storage, SharePoint, and so on. Now, even if you do not have that, you can also push data immediately into AI search. Again, that's a point that is quite already advanced, and we're not going to go further into that. If we look at the standard flow, we have, for example, a blob storage full with PDFs and Word documents. Now, the first thing that we want to do is extract that information, get the information that is out in those documents, and structure it. And that's what the extract function do. We will create some kind of JSON documents and save it into, you could say, some kind of a database. In AI search, it's called an index. Now, once that is all done, it's easy peasy just to start searching on all those documents by defining the correct fields. As I said, not only search is possible, you will also be able to push it forward into a data store. So you can save the extracted information from your PDFs or your Word document or your Excels or your images into a data store by using JSON format. Now, that brings us to the whole life cycle, where once we have it in a data store and it's structured, well, then we can do extra things on it. We can start visualizing with Power BI, or even make use of that data to build your own custom machine learning models, or infuse it into your own applications. I think this is enough of a little bit of introduction to AI search. Let's just go immediately into a demonstration so you understand how it actually works. You ready? Let's go. So we are going to start on the Azure portal. As every new project, let's start creating a new resource group. So we're gonna say create a resource, resource or resource group, and we choose for Azure, we just look for search, not searchy, but search. And you will immediately notice we will have, once it's showing up, Azure AI Search. So the moment you click on this, you will be able to go through the next steps of deploying this service. We say create, and then we choose a subscription. I will just gonna create a new resource group, which I'm gonna call RG presentation 2025. Okay. We give it a name. I like giving nice names to services. I'm just gonna call it like this, presentation 2025. It's a bit of a naming convention that I like to keep on. And then of course a location. For this demo it doesn't really matter where, so we'll just keep it on in the central US. Now of course pricing tier is an important parameter, and you can choose between different versions. And we have a free version where you only have a limited size of data that can be saved, and also the amount of indexes is linked, maximized to 3. For now, I'm gonna take the basic one because the free one has some limitations to create certain things. So we chose basic, we go to scaling, we'll just leave that to 1 search unit. You notice the basic one is already 70 euros per month, but in this demonstration, we're just gonna use it for this presentation, and then we can immediately delete it again. So that's not a problem. Networking wise, we're not going to do anything special here. We're just going to go all the way to review plus create. And we can, once everything has been validated, we can click create. So while this is getting created, we are going to create another resource, and that's a storage account, because we want to upload a bunch of documents that we want to search through. So we can just close this because it's already running here, so that is good. So we'll just see here it started already. I can go to my resource group that has been created already. I click on create, and here I will say storage account, and I will create a new one. In the meanwhile, my search service has been created already, but now I want somewhere to upload some documents. So I'll say storage account. We'll use the same resource group, and I'm going to give it a nice name, presentation 2025. We'll use the same region. Primary service will be a blob storage. Performance, we'll just keep it to standard, and we'll go for this cheapest, which is local redundant storage. No extra features needed here, so we'll just go to review and create. Again, validation is on its way. So a storage account is just a place where you can store files. It also has a way of creating tables where you can just save data in a more structured way. It also has a queuing system, and it also has a kind of file share. But now we're gonna make use of the classic storage, which is a blob storage. Blobs are just any kind of file. So in a storage account, you can actually upload any type of information into it without any problem. So again, we're waiting for the deployment. That should be done quite fast. And meanwhile, I'll just go to the resource group. Notice we already have our search service here. We're just gonna wait for a second that our storage is finished creating. Can already refresh. Sometimes it shows up already before it says it's finished here. Alright, so our storage account is created. If I refresh, there it is. What we're going to do first is upload a bunch of documents that we want to make use of. So we click on our storage account, we go to storage browser, and we go to our blob containers, and we're going to create a new container which I can just call documents, and we create. That is done quite fast. It's already here. We click on our documents and we can upload files. Now I have already prepared a list of different documents. Let me open my workspace. A workshop, here it is. I have some data. I'm just gonna upload it. It's all Microsoft white papers that we will use to do some researching on. So we have 18 files, we click upload. They're not the biggest files, so this should be going quite fast. So we have a couple of bigger ones, but that doesn't matter. So just give this a second. And it should be all done in a minute. Oh, the big ones are still taking a bit longer. But that's okay. It's uploading in the backend, and we can actually go further already in the interesting part of how do we search through all these documents and do we find the correct fitting document to our question. So let's close this and we go to our search service. Now the nice thing about the Azure portal is that for search service there's a very interesting import data part. So when we click on import data, it will let us go through a list of steps to be able to process our documents. And as you see now, all our documents are uploaded, so that is perfect. Now you need to understand that Azure AI Search has particular objects that you need to follow. The first one is the selection of your data, and that's what we call our data source. And that's what we're going to define right now. Now our data source in this case is a blob storage. We need to give our data source a particular name. Again, I like some naming convention. I like to give it DS and then blob, or how you want to call it. And then what kind of information do we want to extract? Now we can make the choice to only use metadata. In some cases that might be useful, but most of the times, of course, you want the content data on itself. So we want content and metadata. The parsing can be JSON default. Again, we need to select the subscription, our connection string to our storage account, but we can choose an existing connection, and then it will give us a nice list of everything, of all the storage accounts that we have. So I click the one we have created, I choose the container, and I select, and that's immediately filled in. We are not going to do authentication with managed identities by making use of this connection string. In the backend there's already a key that is used. If you're bringing this into production, make use of system assigned or user assigned authentication, which is much better. The second step is, if that is necessary, within your container you might have multiple folders. Well, then you can filter up by only looking at a particular folder by defining it here. And let me close down my team so no one disturbs. Description again is optional, and for that our data source has been defined, and we can click next. So as you see, it's now looking into the data, this is on our data source, to figure out what kind of fields could we extract out of that data set. So again, we give it a couple of seconds, it's validating everything here. Again, this shouldn't be taking long, so an index has been detected already, and we will be able to see that in a bit. Except just extracting the information out of the document, we can also add way more functionalities to it. And one of that is by adding an AI service. We are going to make use now of the free one. You can link it also to paid version. So if you create an AI search service, not a search, in your resource group, you can have some more features, and it also means that you will be able to extract or process way more documents than that is possible with the free version. So we'll just keep it on the free. Now, after assigning what AI service we want to use, we can add some enrichments. And enrichments are done via a skill set. Now, and a skill set is again another object in AI Search that is defining what kind of transformations need to be done on your document. So we will have a particular data field. In this case, we have our content. You see, this is already the index or the structure of the JSON document, you could say, that has been predefined based on the analysis that it did on the data set that you gave. So the content is the field or the content that is in your file. So content is already a good one. Now, what do we want to extract? Well, we want to see people names. If any person name is used in the documents, well, extract it. If there's organization names, same. If it's locations, keyframes, we also want that the language of the document is detected. And you know what? We want all the documents to be translated. The target language is, let's say, Turkish. And we will add this in a new field called translated text. Another feature that is possible because of the AI services is extract personal identifiable information. So this is like birth dates, driving license numbers, ID numbers, passport codes, and all those kind of things. Everything that can be related to a person will be extracted, and in your next steps or within your front end, you will be able to mask those details if you want. So these are all skills that will be defined in your skill set. So the skill set is the definition of what kind of transformations are necessary to bring it into your search. Next to saving everything while transforming everything in your skill set, you can also define where all that information can be stored. By default, it's already going to be stored in your index. So index is a different object where all the information will by default be stored and where you have all these different fields. So if you use a knowledge store, you can say I want to save all my documents, and again you need to select a particular storage account and a particular container. We're not going to do that at this moment, we're just going to leave it like that. So we defined now our data source, we defined what kind of transformations that need to be done. The next one is our index. So we're validating now first all the transformations, and now we have how our index is going to look like. Now this one is very important because once you've set these fields, you cannot change them anymore. You can add fields and you can delete fields, but manipulating fields except the retrievable column is not possible once they have been created. So keep that well in mind. So we have an index name. Again, I like to give it a nice name. I always start with IDX. We need to give it a path. Since each file in our blob storage is unique, the storage path is a perfect one to be useful. Now, we have all these fields that have been predefined by the workflow here, But now it's important to understand what each of these columns mean. Retrievable, well, that's quite easy. If this is on, it means when you search for something, that field can be given back or returned to you. So you can retrieve it. If it's not on, it will never return it, even if you ask specifically for it. Filterable is when you do a one-on-one match. That means, let's say, content type is JSON. But although we're talking here about text, when we're using on numeric types, it means it could also be everything that is bigger than, or smaller than, or in between this and that. So filterable is really setting particular filters, like like how you have in SQL queries, on those particular columns. Sortable, well, I don't think that needs any explanation. Sorting on alphabet or sorting numeric or sorting by date. If you don't select these items, it means your field is not sortable. And then we have the fourth one, facetable. Many people have not really the idea of what facetable means, but you need to think about, let's say you go to a website like booking.com and you search for a particular hotel in any particular city. You see everything, you see a list of all your hotels, and then on the side you have extra filters that you can do, like the number of stars that the hotel needs to have, or you only want to see hotels with swimming pool, for example. Well, those side filters, that's something that you can get by making a field facetable. So keep that in mind, that's an important one. Now the most important fields setting is if it's searchable or not. Now this is making use of the built-in search analyzers that Microsoft has foreseen. So of course, if you're searching on documents, the content will be the most important one and the other fields might not be necessary. Sometimes it is also important to be able to filter, or sorry, not filter, but search on particular file names, then you could define also that. Now, next to searchable, you need to define, when you click this on, what kind of analyzer that you're making use of. Now, when you make use of an analyzer, depending on the language, you can set specific ones. So example, this analyzer, we can put it on, this goes too fast, on English. I prefer the English Microsoft over the Lucene, it works quite well. And then we have here all these ones, all the new, for me they don't need to be searchable, we're just gonna make them facetable, for example. Now the translated text, we want it searchable, but that one should be Turkish Lucene, and I immediately recognized it already because of the workflow. And that's it. We'll keep it for now like that. We also have a suggestion, and that's when you want to have some kind of autocomplete, but we'll not go into detail today. Now, notice also your type. If we create a new field, and we just go scroll down, we have here an empty field. I'll just call it demo field. We have multiple different kinds of object types that we can define. We have the classic ones, a boolean, datetime, a double, a geography point if you want to make use of latitude and longitude, which you can also make use of in a filter. Let's say you want everything in a 15 miles around that particular position. Well, that's perfectly possible with the geography point. Classic integers, string, and then we have also collections. You might see that our people, organization, occasion, and key phrases are collections of string. That means it has an array of items. Now, except a normal collection, we can also define a complex type. Now, what is a complex type? Complex type is an object that is linked into an object. So we have a field, demo field, and then I can add a subfield that has demo field child ID, for example, and then I can add, let me go back to this one, another subfield, demo field child name. That means, and let's say JSON wise, because this is saved as a JSON, that you have a field, demo field, and then you could say dot demo field child ID. And so it's a part of it. Now, this is a complex type, but we can also have a collection of complex types. That means you can have multiple objects, so the combination of child ID, and child name within this field. So just as you have an array of different strings here, you will have here an array of different objects, just like this is one big object. I hope this makes a bit sense. I'm just gonna delete this one to go forward with. So we have our index name, we have our key defined, and then we click create an indexer. Now, what is the indexer? And that's the last part, or the last main object within Azure AI Search. Is this will define the connection between your data source, your skill set, your index. So the indexer will be running on a particular schedule, which we can define. And it will also have extra parameters, like we only want to look into PDF documents. And you can only process 5 documents at a time, for example. And what kind of data do we want to extract? So we're all going to leave this now empty in this side. I'll give it a nicer name. And we click submit. The moment I'm going to click submit, the indexer is going to start and it's going to start processing the documents. So let's have a look. So we see all the different objects that are getting created, and now all of it has been created. Now if we go now on the left side to search management, you will also see the different things we've already discussed. We have our index, which at the moment has 0 documents, and if we click on our index, we have all the fields that have been defined. It's always interesting also to see the JSON part of it, to understand what's behind it. So we have our fields, the content name, the type, different settings, if it's a key, and what kind of analyzer has been used. So we have that for each one of them. Now if we go back, we also have our indexer. Let's open it up so we have an ID. Again, here you don't see so much details, but here we already see that our indexer has run, and in 27 seconds it has processed 18 documents without any errors or warnings. So that is great, but I want to go a little bit into the details and see what is actually behind it. So as I said, the indexer links everything together. As you see here, we have the definition, that is what data source needs to be used, what skill set needs to be used, and what target index needs to be used. And then we have the schedule, which is 0 at the moment because we do it immediately. Now if we go back to data source, we will see exactly the same here. If I click on the data source, we have some information, but again in the JSON you will have all the detailed information of the setup, the connection string, the container that has been used. The query would be filled in if we set up a specific folder on a particular path. Now enough about that. So we have our indexer, indexer data source, and then our skill set, which is also quite important. If we click on it, this one will only visualize in JSON. We have the different skills here. So one skill is the entity recognition, which means we want to extract addresses, quantities, all this information. And the input is our content and also our language, because depending on the language, well, analysis needs to be done differently. And the extraction here is will we extract the people, the organization, and the location. Now the next one is key phrase, extraction skill, the same thing, we have input and we have an output. Language detection, we have an input, we have an output. Translation skill, this is our input, the default to language, which needs to be to Turkish from English. And then we have our PII detection skill. Now we can add new skills here, and you will see that there's many different kinds of skills. We can call immediately specific Azure machine learning models that you have built, but you can also create your own API skills with Azure Function or with any other API that you have. There's this particular structure that you need to follow, but all of this is described also on the documentation once you try to open it. Then we also see, for example, merging, splitting, sentiment analysis, and so on. Conditional is, for example, when a field name is this, then you need to do that and that. Document extraction is something we can look at another time. So let's keep this like it is, and we're gonna go to our index. Let's click on index. We have 18 documents. If I just click search, what will I get back is all my 18 documents. Let me scroll down a bit. And what we see is, as I said, a JSON document that is returned with a value, and each value is one particular PDF. In this case, they're all PDFs that have been extracted. So we have our content. It's not showing everything, but this is all the information that is within that document. We have all the people that have been discussed in that document, organizations. You might notice they're not always 100% correct. We have locations, sometimes quite a lot. We have key phrases that are important. So this is all extracted information. Let's scroll a bit down. Depending on the size of your document, of course, you will have longer lists. And then we have our document in Turkish, the masked document. So that means all the personal information that was discussed in that document was replaced by stars. And then for each location where that PII was found, like Christopher Siegert was found on an offset of 85 with length 17, and that was a person. And we will find that for all these items back. Now, this is of course not searching yet, and this is purely getting information back. Now, if I go back to my fields, what I would like to see is the name of my document. You see, this one I can still update, but all the rest, that's not possible at all anymore. For now, I'm just going to disable these ones. Let's say the language we can still keep. And I'm going to save. And we go back to our Search Explorer. And I want to search something about, let me have a quick look about the documents I had uploaded. What can you tell me about quantum mechanics? And I get results back. You see, based on the search scoring, the highest, the most relevant document will be shown on the top. So this is without creating anything advanced. You can immediately search through a bunch of documents and you'll get a particular scoring that you can make use of. Now, this is just searching through by text. We can configure also a semantic configuration. The name of we'll just give it a name. Semantic configuration means it's some kind of extra AI that has been put on top of the search engine to get better results, but also it will be able to give answers back. So we'll just call this semantic config, and the title field is, let's say it's our storage name. The content field will be our contents, and keywords, well, we have our key phrases. So that's it, save. and we save like this. We go back to our Search Explorer and we go to our query options. We make sure that our semantic configuration is on. We can say a spell checker, and we can also add, for example, a language, but in this case that's not necessary. Now, when I do a search now, the results that we will be getting back are much better. Of course, I'm not showing here now an answer. So what we can do is here in the list, we already enable extractive answering. Now you need to understand that this semantic answering or extractive answering, as it says, is extractive. That means that it's not like gonna be like ChatGPT, where it will be generate an answer. So it will take particular sentences out of the document that it think might give an answer on your question. So let's have a quick look, see who are the authors of let's try something. Instead of just searching, we will say, what does Microsoft protect? Let's see if we get an answer. And we have. So we got an answer, we even got multiple answers. And again, each with their scoring. So it will be up to you to show the best one in your front end. Now, as I said before, Azure AI Search is a backend API service. If you want to make use of this, well, you need to make use of the APIs behind it. Now that means you have, for a particular version, of course, just keep yourself with the latest one, and then you need to send in a particular JSON to be able to get the correct documents back. Now what I haven't showed yet is because we also had filters that we could define, and I want to show only documents where the language is in English. So let's just gonna switch this back to the query view. No, I'll keep it here. And what I want to do is set filter, and the filter we will define language not equal to English. I think all our documents are in English, so it should return us 0. Language is not filterable, and that's something I had forgotten to set, so that was not a smart move. Language is facetable. That was not a smart move of me. But this is just what I wanted to show you. When you want to set filters, well, you can just define it in this way. And of course you can add multiple on each other. There's a whole documentation also about it, how to generate these filters. It's a particular language structure that you need to follow. So with this was a small demo about how to set up Azure AI Search and how to process documents and start searching through it. I hope this was already useful. Now let's go to another service that can help you mining documents. So the next service that we want to discuss is Azure Document Intelligence. You know, every organization has many documents that are coming in via mail, for example, invoices or other scan forms that people need to fill in, maybe in a hospital. And then we have people who constantly type in all that information into a system. Let's be honest, it's some kind of a monkey job. No one actually does like doing these kind of things. But you know what? There is a service by Microsoft that can automate that process, and that is, as I said, called Azure Document Intelligence. Now, you could call Azure Document Intelligence as a bit of an OCR tool on steroids. Now, the service on itself has different kind of models that you can make use of. The first one is just the read model. The read will just extract all printed and handwritten information out of the document and return it to you. A second one is the layout, where it will figure out what are tables, what are checkboxes, what are headers, and so on. Again, we will see some examples of that in a bit. And then the third one is General documents, like when you send in a scanned form, it will recognize what the field name is and what the filled in value is for that field. This is all very general models, but next to that, there are also pre-built models specific to recognize invoices, receipts, business cards, IDs, a bunch of US tax forms also if you're in the US based, but also health insurance card, vaccinations cards, and so on. I think there's almost over 20. We'll have a look again at that in a second. And then a third one, which is very interesting, is the custom models. Now with custom models, you will train your own model. Now what happens is you will give in a bunch of examples and you will first define what kind of fields do I want to extract out of that document. And so in this case, I define that I want to recognize the document number, document date, sell to customer number, order number, and then the shipments. Now what will happen? Initially the document will be analyzed and you'll see all the yellow text. That is what has been recognized. The next part is, for example, they figured out this is a table, and then I will tag. I will start saying, okay, look at this field, the green one here, that is my document number. And from there onwards, I can go forward and train a model and then call these models also in an automatic way, just as all the rest. But again, enough theory, let's go into a demo. Well, we are back on the Azure platform. We are still in our resource group, and now we need to create our document intelligence resource. So again, I'm going to click create. We go to the marketplace and I search for document intelligence. And there we have this one, not this one. Notice in the past it was called form recognizer, but now it's rebranded to document intelligence. So we're gonna create one. We go through all the steps. We leave our resource group. Let's put this one also on Central US, just like the rest. And we need to give it a name. Presentation 2025. A pricing tier, we can use the free one. 500 pages per month, which is already quite a lot. So if you do not have a lot of documents in a month, then this is actually a perfect one to start using of. We don't have anything else of networking or identity that we will use, so we'll just say review plus create. Let's run final validation and click create. Let's give it a couple of seconds to create the service. So the deployment has been submitted. Again, this goes quite fast. No need to skip forward. Go. Process is loading. Couple more seconds. As I said before, when you show a demo, it always goes a little bit slower than in the real world, you could say. Okay, so we go back to our resource group, and now our document intelligence resource should be there, as we see here. We can click on it, and you will notice that in here we can't actually do so much except getting like keys and the endpoint. Again, this is an API service. There is a front end, but that's purely for training the custom models, which we will go towards now. So if we click on go to Document Intelligence Studio, we will go immediately into a nice web app where we can show off the power of document intelligence. Sorry, my internet is not the fastest today. I'll just give it a little bit of time. We're still here, it's still loading, and there it is. Oh, all right, yeah, there it is. So you will see here the part that we were looking at already earlier in this presentation. Let me zoom in a little bit. The more general methods, I will just go over each one of them. So we have the OCR read functionality, and in this studio we can give little demos of what it actually does. So I wasn't logged in yet. Now we have here a particular PDF document, and if I click on run analysis, what will be done is that all of this information here will show up here. So it already, although this is the OCR read, it recognizes what are different paragraphs in my document. So this is already quite impressive. This is not a standard OCR, isn't it? Now, when you run this call via the API or via the SDK in C# and Python, you will get, of course, a specific result. This is this object where you will get back the full content, but you will also be able to get the polygon of, if you want to visualize what has been extracted in your front-end application, you can get for each item all that information out of it. So that's, again, depending on the use cases, very useful to have. Now, you have the full content here that we can have a look at. We have the results, so that's what the API returns. And then we also have some code. So if you are a Python developer, well, there's a beautiful example of how to run this. If you are a JavaScript developer, well, again, beautiful example of how to do this. Oh, I was not supposed to zoom in here. And of course also in C#. Notice C# has its own SDK, also Python has its own SDK, and I'm not sure this should be making use of the API endpoints. Oh no, it also has its own SDK. Sorry, I'm not a JavaScript developer, so this is something I'm not used to use in JavaScript. So, as I said, this is purely extracting the content, not so much structure, although it recognizes different paragraphs. So let's go to the different one, where we have the layout field. We're just gonna skip all this, and let's go to, for example, a document which has a table, which has checkboxes, which has handwritten information. So we do a run analysis on it. And you already notice here while it's running, we have different kinds of fields. We have text that is recognized, selection marks, tables, and figures. So although all of this is text, it's not recognized as a text field. This title, this is cont paragraph, and then we also have the page number that was detected. Notice it also recognized that type, so that's also very useful. Then we have all the selection marks. It even tells you not selected, selected, and the accuracy linked to it. Of course, the whole table, and notice it added the checkboxes with it. And then also figures, but in this case we don't have any figures. If we would go, for example, to this one with a chart and we do an analysis on this, we do have a figure, and this is the text that was in the linked to the figure. Here's a figure with text. It's not going to analyze the picture on itself. Therefore, you would need to have Vision AI or multimodal large language models to do that. Now, an interesting one in this, but I will show you that with invoices, is also query fields, but we'll go back to that later. So we've looked at the classic read, we looked at the layouts, which will just take out, this is a table, this is a header, this is a paragraph, and so on. Then we also have general documents. Now with general documents, I think the best example is having a particular form. If we do an analysis on that, you will notice that it will as you can see in the picture, let's let it finalize the running. We have a particular key, this is the PC operator number, and then also the value. So this has been extracted in an automatic way, and we see here bypass was unselected, sidetrack was unselected, new well was selected. So without training anything, it already recognizes this is a particular form and knows what the form keys are and what the values are. So this can make processing of this document so much easier than doing it manually. Now let's go to the pre-built models. Now I'm only going to go to one because the idea of all of them is quite the same, and as I said, the list has been extended. We have invoices, receipts, identity documents, US health insurance, personal tax, mortgage, pay stubs, bank statements, checks. This is all quite for the US market. Credit cards to get the card number out of it, to analyze contracts, and also business cards, which might be handy. So let's go to invoices, because at the end we know a lot of invoices are still manually entered into their accounting tool. I want to go to a particular example. Let me quickly go to this one. All right. So this is an invoice. If I do an analysis, what's the difference with a pre-built model is that the fields are predefined. That means amount due, customer address, these are predefined fields, and we might notice, maybe not in this example, sometimes that specific fields will be empty because the information is not there. But again, let's see, we have, for example, here a table, and we have all our items here, and you see it's also recognized this is a table. And if we open it up, we have the content, amount, description, product code, tax rate, and so on. If we click on the table, we also see the details. Now notice it's not always perfect. See, we have our, this here was good. Yeah, so here, for example, the tax rate 18.00%. What is the correct one? And so this is not the tax rate, this is something different. So sometimes manual work will still be necessary, and therefore we will look at the custom models. Now, just as all the other models, the pre-built models or the classic OCR, or let's say OCR on steroids models, we always have a look at what the result is. We have a full track of where everything has been saved, and again, every time an example of how to call it. Now the interesting part is the difference between using the classic OCR read model or this pre-built invoice model. The only thing that you need to change is here on this side is your model name, and that's it. Now, what I still wanted to show here is this new feature, which I find quite amazing, is the query fields. Now, you might notice here I have a particular field IFS code. Now, this is not being built in by default in the invoice model, but I want to have it as an extra. Now, I could train a new custom model and label it manually, but with these query fields, I can just describe it. So if I say here, IFS code, I cannot have, it needs to be like this. We add it as an extra field. We just need to acknowledge this costs a little bit money, and we save it. Now that's it. I just gave it the name of that particular field that I want. I do a reanalysis. What will happen if we go to our fields? If we scroll down, we have our IFS code. Now, I did not tell where it was. It recognized that by understanding what is actually there, which was for me the first time I used that. That's quite powerful, because we're not making use of an LLM or a language model like the GPT models to be able to extract information here. So this is pretty awesome. You can add up to 20 of those fields and this gives you the opportunity to enhance those pre-built models with some extra fields that you also need. Now, as I said, we have our pure document analysis models and the OCR, the layout, the general document. We have a bunch of pre-built models, so that means the fields are preset. You cannot change anything, but with the query fields, you can add some fields. And then the last one is the custom extraction model and the classification model. I will not show this one in a demo because it's quite advanced to be able to do that. I showed you in the screenshots a bit of how you can tag that information. But the idea of the custom extraction model is that you give examples of forms and you say this is the key, this is the value, and you label it for 10, 20 different examples, and then you get a model name that you can call just the same as you call the other models. Now, custom classification model is something totally different. Custom classification model gives you an opportunity to recognize the difference between, for example, invoices of different customers. So you will give 10 examples of customer X and 10 examples of customer Y. You tag it purely saying this is customer X and this is customer Y, and then the next you train it. You can send in a new document and it will figure out if it's linked to customer X or customer Y. It doesn't really it looks less to the content but more to the structure of the document. So document intelligence, very interesting service to be able to make use of extracting information out of invoices, receipts, or custom forms that you have in your organization. Now, what is quite interesting, if we combine AI search and document intelligence, is that we can extract specific information and save it structurally within our AI search. Now, if we would go back to our document, to our AI search, let's go back, and I go to my skill sets. Load it. You will notice when I add a new skill set that I can choose for document extraction skill. And here we can define in our configuration, you can learn more about it here, what document intelligence endpoint we need to make use of and what model we need to make use of. That means when a document comes in the end via the indexer, it will also be sent to document intelligence to extract information and push it into your index so you can search through it structurally, which is pretty awesome. Now, this whole combination is also something that is used very often in building a custom RAG, a retrieval augmented generation solution. And so when you can chat on your own data, where the document intelligence is used to extract information out of documents, because the power of document intelligence is that it can also extract information in a markdown way. That means it keeps still somehow some structure that is very well understood by LLMs. Now, we extract the data, we save it into Azure AI Search. Now, Azure AI Search is also a vector database. That means you can also embed the documents. That means you can convert it into numbers, which has, of course, linguistic meanings. And then we can use it for vector search and find even better search results than what we have with semantic search. So, in conclusion, AI search is a very powerful tool and it makes it very easy to extract thousands of documents and make them searchable in your front end. Again, it is an API service, so you'll still need to build a front end on top of it, but it's not that hard. If you go through the documentation, you'll find plenty of examples of how to do it. And then we have document intelligence, which also extracts information out of documents, but it's a bit more powerful. It will also extract forms and will save it into a structured way. Now, combining these together is very powerful. And then, of course, if you are more advanced in it, you can even bring a large language model on top of it, and then you can bring out even more interesting and higher quality answers based on the questions that your users will have. Now, thank you very much for watching this session. If you still have any questions, don't hesitate to reach me. You can find my my LinkedIn up there. Just connect with me, send me a message, and I'll try to help you out. The steps that I took for cognitive services are available in a lab that I created. You can find them on this link. Just go ahead, try it out, and I'm sure you'll learn more about it. So wish you all the best with your next steps and mining data out of all that information, and looking forward to maybe speak to you another time. Bye bye.